And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the OPP Ask Me Anything session. My name is Rial Lavac. I am one of the recruiters out here today from East Region. I'm at the Ottawa Detachment presently. And joining us today is Marisol Primo. And where are you today, Marisol?
Today I'm in Arnprior. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Just a little bit of news before we get started. You may be aware, but the OPP is doing a little bit of a hiring on a cadet program. You can go to our website at opp.ca/cadet, and the applications cutoff, the closing date for that will be this Friday, August 11th. So if you're interested and you haven't put in your application yet, by all means, go look at our website and have a look at that. Bonjour, aujourd'hui, mon nom c'est Réal Levac. Laissez savoir, on va répondre vos questions. Si vous avez des questions en français, absolument les passer, puis je peux vous répondre comme je réponds les autres, puis je vais partager en anglais aussi pour que tout le monde puisse avoir l'information. A little bit about myself, 27 years with the OPP. I've been most of my career here in East Region. I've done a lot of it in Ottawa Detachment before joining the uniform recruitment in 2018. But I've done a lot of different detachment roles, including breathalyzer technician. I did motorcycle operator, community service operator, or community service officer. I did court liaison work. I worked with our liaison with our auxiliary members as well. A lot of different detachment roles without requiring transfers or anything like that. As these positions open up, you can apply them within your detachment. Every detachment does that a little bit differently. So some of the things that I've done since prior to joining the uniform recruitment 5 years ago. What about you, Marisol?
Yeah, like you, I've had the opportunity to try out some different things, which is really nice within this career. So like most people, I joined the OPP and started work doing frontline patrol duties at the Upper Ottawa Valley Detachment. This was about 20 years ago. And I did that for a number of years, really enjoyed just learning everything that's involved in working general patrol duties. And then I started to specialize a little bit. I spent a number of years on the provincial liaison team dealing with a lot of critical incidents, major disputes, major events. I was also a crisis negotiator, which is an extra duty on top of whatever members happen to be doing. We get called out when we're needed to do crisis negotiating. I was a member of the critical incident stress and peer support team. And then more recently, the last couple of years, working here in uniform recruitment. So that's just a little bit about me.
All right, so we're getting some cadet questions, so that's good. I'm going to take two here. One's quicker than the other. There's no age, all right? The program is geared for people to prepare themselves to be able to gain some experience and apply to the cadet program. It is geared for maybe a younger applicant, nobody under 18, not that young, a younger applicant that's looking to kind of get into the OPP, get a stepping stone, get some knowledge and some experience to be able to apply for a uniform position. It is not closed to certain ages. So somebody was asking, they're turning 26 tomorrow. So happy birthday for you for tomorrow. That's not going to, there's no cutoff of age. Therefore, you can apply, your application's okay. You won't be, there won't be any effect on your file. Now, somebody's asking, they're interested in, and this is kind of touches a little bit on when do I apply type thing. So somebody wants to apply to a uniform position, but also they're also interested in cadet. So it would be more beneficial to apply to cadet first and then uniform recruitment after that. So my first thing would be, how prepared are you? If you look at our application, you can download it. There's a form there, a self-assessment form. It has the areas of assessment. And if you've been or listened to one of our information sessions, you'll hear one of the recruiters speak on those elements. And those are the things we're looking for in candidates so that they can be competitive. So in assessing yourself and listening to an info session or attending one, you can evaluate yourself and see if you're competitive enough to apply for a position as a uniform member right now. If you feel that you're not there yet and you feel that you need to gain more experience, then maybe the cadet route or even the auxiliary route or therefore any of our special constable positions as well, might be a way for you to gather some experience and be able to just build some of that knowledge and finding out what the policing world really is, and gaining that experience you need to make yourself competitive against all those other candidates that are applying at any given time. So, so it's up to you to deem yourself competitive now or later. And if you're not ready now, then work on those things. And by all means, cadet program, the auxiliary program, our special constables, those are all different roles that you can apply to, different positions. The auxiliary is a volunteer-based position. The other ones are paid positions. And that'll help you identify if you're ready to apply or not.
This is just a really general point that I want to touch on. I see a lot of questions around certainly the cadet, the auxiliary, special constable, and as well civilian positions and certain specialty units within the OPP and whether those are hiring. And so today we're really focusing on uniform recruitment. But what I would recommend to anyone who is interested in other positions within the OPP is to visit our website, opp.ca/careers. And under that section, you can see a listing of, and we've got that popping up on the screen here. Under that section, you can see a listing of all of the positions, whether it's uniform recruitment or civilian. We've got many opportunities for civilians within the OPP, but as to whether they are hiring at the present moment, that sort of thing, we're not too sure. So that's something where it's really important for you to visit that website and do that research yourself to see what other opportunities there are within the OPP.
Somebody's asking why you have to wait a year to reapply, and if you can still apply for the auxiliary program while you're waiting. So the year is designed for you to evaluate, assess, and kind of like I just spoke about those areas of assessment, but after being through certain areas of the process, to take that time to go back and look at things and see where you can enhance your application and be more competitive. At any stage, whether pre-screening, interview, background, any stage, if you get the letter saying, unfortunately, you're not going to proceed in the process, you do have to wait a year. And that year is designed so you can improve your application, because we would probably have applicants that would reapply the next day and try again. I've spoken to candidates sometimes, or past candidates, who said, I applied, I got an interview, and I got denied at the interview. A year later, they apply, and they don't get an interview again. They got removed from the process at the early pre-screening stage. And what happens often in that case is that during that year, the candidate has made no effort to improve their application. In other words, they basically provided the same application, the same information. They've done nothing to enhance their portfolio to make themselves more competitive from that prior application. So in our eyes, we're basically evaluating the same thing we did a year ago. That year is there, designed there for you to enhance your application, make yourself more competitive. And you don't necessarily have to apply at the year. It's a minimum of a year. If it's going to take you a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years to get competitive, then take that time. Don't rush into it. Even your initial application, don't rush into it because of that year. Sometimes it's better to take a couple months and work on something rather than rush in, not be successful, and have to wait a whole year. And my thing keeps scrolling here. And can you still apply to the auxiliary program? Absolutely. Okay. If you're denied within uniform recruitment, you can still apply the auxiliary program, and that may give you some opportunities to gain some of those skills that you were lacking in your initial uniform recruitment application. So that's where that year is, where that comes from for the year and what it's designed for.
I saw some questions regarding people with different employment experience and different levels of academic history, whether they have post-secondary, formal post-secondary or not, and how that translates to applying to policing. And so the thing to keep in mind is that we're not looking for a one type of cookie cutter applicant. We really want our candidates and our recruits to reflect the diversity of our communities. And so depending on your employment history and your academic background, people have a lot to bring to this job. And so we're really looking for people from all kinds of backgrounds with employment history. And quite often, if you think about it, you'll have something to bring to policing that's transferable, whether it's customer service skills. It might be really strong communication skills through crisis de-escalation and resolving conflicts, problem solving, leadership, maybe some training experience. So we really are looking for people with a broad range of skills and experience to bring to our police service.
Okay. So I mentioned auxiliary earlier, and I got another question here about how long it takes to hear back. So currently, uniform recruitment is not responsible for. Sorry, something just popped up. Currently, uniform recruitment is not responsible for hiring for the auxiliary program. That will be coming to us in the near future, but not at this time. So if a specific unit that you applied to is not hiring at this time, that might be the delay. I know you've been waiting for a long time, since over a year. They don't do a hiring process on a continuous role like we do in uniform recruitment. And if they don't have any positions available, then they might not run a process to hire at that point. That may change in the new year as uniform recruitment may take a new position into that. But for now, it's per unit how that works from there. So you just have to be patient and wait, or try to reach out at the detachment that you'd apply to for that unit and see if somebody can touch base with you to let you know what the holdup is or what's going on. There was another quick one here, if you don't mind, Marisol.
Sure.
Does credit history play a big part in the hiring process? Well, I don't know how you would describe a big part. Does it play a part? Absolutely. Okay, it's part of that responsibility and in your lifestyle that you're taking the responsibility of looking after yourself. Can you look after yourself in the way of finances and pay your bills, or do you have collection agents chasing after you, or the old adage of bouncing checks? There's a few less of that these days than before with all our instant tapping and things. But are you looking after your finances and your responsibilities? And it goes beyond just that. Like, are you paying your rent? You could be living at home, and that's okay too. We understand people are staying at home a little bit longer than maybe they used to in the past. But are you taking some type of responsibilities at home? In other words, are you paying some type of room and board, or paying a little bit of the bills, a little bit of the groceries, helping out somewhere within your means, depending where you are, whether you're in school or working, and how much money you're earning in school. So we look at all that as part of your lifestyle. Yes, we do look at it. Absolutely. Check your credit scores. It's part of many different things that we look at to evaluate a candidate. So if your credit is not in a good place, it might be of benefit to try to get it in a good place and get some positive financial responsibilities and fiscally responsible for a period of time before you apply. And that goes for any areas where you're lacking. Try to get a good history of positive involvement in different areas.
There was a question about volunteering and what part that plays in our process. And we certainly do look at volunteering. You know, one of the reasons people often say they're interested in policing is because they want to help people and they want to get involved in their community. But how do you demonstrate that to us if it's not something that you've ever done? It kind of, you know, is a little bit of a contradiction if that's not something that you've done. So we do look at volunteering, but we also recognize that a lot of people, when they apply, you might be juggling family responsibilities and full-time employment, or you're a full-time student and working as well. So we recognize that you may not have a lot of time. So when it comes to volunteering, it doesn't mean that you need to be volunteering 10 hours a week. It really might work out to an hour or two a week, you know, a several hours a month, but we want to see some kind of involvement with your community. And we don't dictate what that looks like. Really, what you should be looking for are opportunities for you to develop your communication skills, your leadership skills, interacting with different people in the community. So maybe not people that you always are accustomed to dealing with. So it might be younger people, older people, different cultures. It really depends. But looking at something that challenges you and offers some opportunities for growth is really what we're looking for when it comes to volunteering. And it can be a great way to supplement parts of your background where maybe you might be lacking. So if you are lacking in leadership experience, you might gain that through community service. So really look at it as an opportunity to develop yourself while really assisting your community, which is what you'll be doing as a police officer.
This goes back to your comments earlier, Marisol, about civilian positions or different positions within the OPP. So, okay, make sure I have it here. So there are, throughout the OPP, there are civilian positions, administrative type positions. Those you might be able to find through GoJobs, and not just on our website only. The ones on our website through careers you'll find are kind of there's uniform recruitment, experienced police officers, communication center, the auxiliary, special constables, those positions. But some of the other admin positions, you can find them through GoJobs. Okay. Do you need frontline security guard experience? So no, you don't. There's no prerequisite of a certain education or a certain work experience that you need to apply to the OPP. We want people that come from a mix of different backgrounds, academically. Bear with me here. Got a security pop-up I have to enter, else it's going to flash my face for the whole session. So we want people from different realms, different backgrounds, because we don't want the same mold of people, of constables or of police officers, because it won't let the organization run properly if everybody's the same. So get something that's of interest to you for school and that you can succeed in. And for work, get something that you can pay the bills, something that you enjoy, that'll pay the bills, and you'll be able to look after those responsibilities for yourself. We do have an area that we assess called special skills, okay? This is where that connection to policing comes in. In special skills, okay, working a security job can fall into that. It's not necessarily that you go out and get a security job, but that falls into a special skill. You're going to do some of the elements of policing and gain some of that experience, okay? But in special skills, it could be different types of certificates and training, any type of leadership things that you do. That's where we look for those transferable skills. And they might come from education, they might come from employment, they might come from volunteering, okay? But the special skills is where we're looking for some of those things that you can bring back. Language skills is a big one. If you speak other languages other than English, okay, giving that back to the organization, depending where you are. I spoke French earlier in the session, Eastern Ontario, Northern Ontario, and I've learned recently that there's a pocket in Southwestern Ontario that have French communities. So being able to speak the language of your community is a huge asset. And around the province, outside of those, language is huge. There's people from all over living in different areas of the province. We have people visiting from different areas of the world into Ontario. So language is a big one in the way of an asset. So no, you don't have to get a security job, but anything that you have that's police related, we look into special skills and we can see what's transferable to policing that way.
I'll just touch a little bit on fitness because there were some questions around applying and what happens after the shuttle run and what some of the requirements are. So one of the really important things, and that's flashing up, you can check our website under fitness, but when you apply to the OPP, the very first thing that happens when we receive your application, before we screen it or do anything with it, you will receive instructions as to how to go about completing and submitting the 20-meter shuttle run. So you can find more of this on our website, but also certainly on YouTube. The 20-meter shuttle run, it's done to a beep test. And as it would suggest, you're running 20 meters from one end to the next. And and the beep starts to get very, very fast progressively over time until the point that you're sprinting. And so when you send us your application, you'll get instructions. You have to complete the shuttle run to a level 7 as a minimum. If you're able to do more than that, certainly show us that. We're looking for the most competitive candidates in terms of fitness. But if you can't reach level 7, then your application won't be processed any further. So that's really the first measurement or the first indicator of whether you should apply, is knowing whether you're able to reach level 7 on the shuttle run. And that is regardless of age or gender. Level 7 is just the minimum requirement for anyone who is applying to the OPP. So once you're able to reach that level 7 and demonstrate that to us, then at that stage, we'll process your application and assess it and determine whether you'll move on to the next stage. That level 7 will be a measurement that we use several times throughout our process. And then you also have to pass at the Ontario Police College. So it's really important to constantly be testing yourself and improving so that you know that you will always be able to reach that marker of 7 or better. We also use the Ontario Fitness Pin as another measurement of your fitness abilities. It's made up of 4 components. There's a 2.4 kilometer outdoor run. We also measure for core endurance, for flexibility, and upper body strength with push-ups. And those have different expectations depending on your age and gender. You can find out more about that at pfpo.org. There's a scoring matrix that breaks it down for your age and for your gender. But on a weekly basis, you should be testing yourself on the fitness pin, on your fitness logs, which you can find with our application. You should be running several times a week. Generally, we like to see people running outdoors about 3 times a week, different distances. So certainly the 2.4 kilometer, because that's part of the fitness pin. But then in addition to that, we want to see you working up towards some longer distances. We want to see strength training at least 3 times a week as well. These are all important because they'll be required at the OPP Academy and then further at the Ontario Police College in order to meet the fitness requirements. So when you apply to the OPP, you will have to submit 2 weeks worth of fitness logs with your application. And then for as long as your application remains open with us, you'll be completing weekly fitness logs. So it may mean that you're completing fitness logs for several months, and we will be assessing those at every stage of our application process, our recruiting process. So it is quite a long-term commitment, but long story short, to summarize that, at the very beginning, you need to know whether you can reach level 7 on the 20-meter shuttle run in order to succeed in the very first part of our application process.
All right, so I have to make a correction of one of my earlier statements. So regarding the age in the cadet program, I looked it up. Somebody had a question here, so I'm going to answer it properly. So the program is designed that one of the qualifications, you must be between 18 and 25 years old at the date of the application. In other words, once your application is submitted, whatever the date is that you submit your application, if you turn 26 after that, that's okay, as long as you're 25 at the time of the application. So I apologize for that misinformation. I did double check here on our website, and it is designed for people of 18 to 25, and it's designed that you may or may not be finished school, and we do have a part-time opportunity for that so that you can finish school and do some part-time cadet work from there. So that's what the program is designed for. Somebody's also asking how long the process from the time you apply to the offer letter being hired. So the process takes approximately 3 to 6 months to get through, depending when you apply and when we can get through everything and when the next class is. So approximately 3 to 6 months. And that'll include your initial application. When you send it in, you get an email confirming your application. You'll get asked to submit that shuttle run video that Marisol was talking about. And then once that is submitted, we'll review it. We do have the pre-screening stage where we'll look at your application, and your video and see if you are competitive enough to be invited to interview. If so, you will be invited to interview. There was a question about the interview. So somebody, like, what was it based on? It's a LFI, so local focus interview. So I have a past colleague who said the smartest person in the interview room at the time of the interview is the candidate, because outside of a few competency questions that we have, the bulk of the interview is about you, the candidate. They're questions about yourself. In other words, know yourself, know your portfolio, know everything about different incidents that you want to bring in, about your grades, your work, any collisions you've been involved in, tickets you've received. Know all that. Be prepared to speak about it confidently. And then after the interview, we have the background stage where we do the actual background investigation itself, but there's also psychological assessment, there's medical assessment, there's other things that we do behind the scene. I talked about finances a little bit earlier. And then after that, everything gets kind of wrapped up and management decides if you're competitive enough to receive an offer of employment. So 3 to 6 months to go through that process. And then depending when the next class is, there may be a gap of time because we only offer a few weeks before the next class. And as it stands now, it's January, April, and September, the 3 classes. And they're looking at adding a 4th class per year, but that hasn't been officially organized and sent out in information yet. But that was past announcement we had a few months from the Ontario government that they want to add a 4th class per year at the Ontario Police College. But for now, it's still 3.
Question regarding preferred postings. So, and when they would make that selection. So when you apply to the OPP, we always recommend, of course, that you've done your research and know our regions, our 6 regions, and the detachments that are available within those regions. And certainly we name all of our detachments. And so what happens is if you make it to the interview stage, that is the point where we'll ask you to identify your 6 preferred posting locations within the province. So you have a lot of selection, and really it depends on your attachments, if you have family to consider, and whether your partner is able to move or whether their job kind of limits you to one area geographically. All kinds of considerations for each person. And we understand that sometimes people don't necessarily have the mobility because of certain family attachments and so on. But you'll be asked to provide those 6 preferred postings, and we generally do a really good job of accommodating one of those top 6. I'm not sure, Real. I think it's in the high 80% range that we generally get people
something like that. Yeah,
one of their
80,
top
yeah,
6.
high
So
80s.
it's pretty good. Having said that, it all comes down to where our operational needs are and where we have vacancies. But within those top 6, you'll generally be fairly lucky. I can't say, based on whether you're applying in the GTA or whether, Northeast, Northwest, what the likelihood is, other than we really do our best to accommodate people. And certainly within Northeast and Northwest region, those are areas where we really are always trying to find competitive candidates who are willing to, take that step of moving north. And there's a lot of opportunities in terms of those duration postings as well, which are identified on our website. There are financial incentives with those duration postings. Things like, at the end of a duration, if you want a transfer, it puts you near the top of the transfer list at the end of your duration posting. And as well, just that opportunity, if you're someone who really likes the outdoors and working in small communities and just that sense of adventure, then those are opportunities that you might want to do a little extra research on Northeast and Northwest region.
So I have a question here regarding the first aid CPR that's required. So it is required by the time the end of the process. In other words, this person is saying they're taking the course in a few weeks. So yes, you can apply now. And as soon as you complete your course, you can update the OPP with your certificate or your card showing the dates that you pass, expiry date, and they'll add that to your file. So that's okay there. there was another question. Somebody's asking about how they can provide some of their professional experience to potentially some of our investigative units. I would contact your local detachment and see if there's a crime unit. You might be able to pass on your information. Um, Sometimes those units will reach out, and even some of the road people, depending what they have, might require some of your services. So reach out to the local detachment to let them know that you are available, and they can send that out to the different officers there. And if anything comes up, they'll have that resource handy, and they'll know of you and who you are and what you do. So that's an option. You can go from there. You okay if I touch on one more?
Go ahead.
Okay. So regarding what looks like, I'm going to answer this in two different ways regarding disqualification for use of drugs or some types of substance abuse. So, and about periods of time to apply and whatnot. So I'll speak about cannabis first. So we do not have a specific period of time that you have to be clear to be able to come to work. We have a fit for duty policy that all officers have to be aware of. And that falls into being fit for duty regardless if it's alcohol or if it's cannabis or any type of other drugs, prescription, non-prescription drugs, anything like that, that anytime that you come to work for the OPP, you have to be fit for duty. If you're under the influence of any type of alcohol or drugs or any substances whatsoever, okay, you're at risk of potentially not just harming yourself or others, depending what your situation is, but at risk of potentially not coming to duty, and then you can be held accountable for that. If you're asking if certain uses of drugs are can disqualify you from the process, yes. However, those are things that are kept to the police services within the province, not just the OPP. We have a system that's provincially mandated of certain things that will disqualify candidates, whether it's drugs or alcohol, employment and driving and criminal record, all those things. There's certain elements that can disqualify a candidate. Those are not shared publicly, however. Those are held to the police services to evaluate from there. So what we do instead of that is that we give you the elements that we look for, those areas of assessment, and tell you if you look after these and make yourself competitive, then you have a good chance of getting through the process and potentially getting an offer of employment from there.
I saw a question regarding mentoring, but also a lot of the questions that we have around people's academic history and employment history. So really what I would recommend to find out more about that, since we just can't mentor people one-on-one because we have hundreds of applicants that each recruiter alone deals with, hundreds of applicants, we're just not able. So what I really recommend as a great way to, I'd say it answers most questions for people, is to either watch virtually or attend one of our information sessions. And if you go on our website, we have them listed under events. And so you can sign up to do a virtual one, or if it's near where you live, go and attend in person. But we cover all of the areas of assessment in great detail in those information sessions. So it will answer a lot of your questions and probably make the idea of mentoring even not necessary, because it will cover off a lot of your questions that way. There were just a few other really short ones I'll answer here. Someone had a question around the reference letters with their application. So really, you can provide reference letters from people who are able to speak to your academic abilities. It could be someone who's able to speak to your employment, or someone who provides more of a character reference, someone who's known you well for a period of time. So you can provide several of those with your application package. And then if you're successful in moving on to the interview stage, then you'll be required to provide 3 academic or learning references, 3 that are employment references, and 3 that are character references. They can be a repetition from the application, so you can reuse those, but you will need 9 individual references with your if you make it to the interview stage. And one question people often have around academic references is if they've been outside of school for a number of years, we do take references from people who are able to speak to your ability to learn. So maybe they have coached you or they mentored you in a new job. So they're able to just really speak to your ability to learn. It might be someone that you apprenticed with, anything like that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal educational setting.
So here's a question, and I know you went through a few of them, Marisol, and as I'm reading, so if you find I'm repeating, please let me know and I'll stop. But somebody looks like they're members of the Canadian Armed Forces, they're on deployment, and they've signed up for police foundations when they get back. They're wondering if it's a prerequisite. And no, it is not. I kind of touched on it a little bit. So the police foundations program could be an asset to your application. It is not a prerequisite. Your training in the military are huge transferable skills, depending exactly what you do. But I imagine for the most part, there is a lot of different training and experiences that you've gained within your employment there that you can bring back into policing. So no, it's not necessary to do police foundations. Just highlight the things that you've done within the military, and those things will stand for what you've done. So somebody's asking about volunteer, about the type of volunteering. Had you touched on that one? I don't think so, Marisol.
Just the fact that you should really take volunteer opportunities that maybe touch on the areas of assessment that we're looking for in terms of leadership,
Okay.
diversity, problem solving. So I think I touched on that one,
Okay.
Real, in enough detail.
I thought so. That's why I asked. So somebody's passed their interview, they're into background, they have to do a lot of the different testing, and they're asking how if their September 6th medical is too late. No, absolutely, it's not too late. We've already filled the class that is starting in a couple of weeks. So the next class is not till January. So I have lots of time if you're in early September to get your medical done. Don't try to do anything different. Just go on the 6th once you have it in completed, send in your information from there. And by all means, you've got lots of time. Don't rush.
I'm not sure if you touched on it already. Someone had asked if we require the OACP certificate. And the answer to that is no, we don't require it for the OPP. If you have it and if it's current, then please do include it with your application. But you don't have to go out and get the OACP certificate in order to apply. That whole process is built into our recruitment process. So I think that answers that. There was another question regarding if you have some kind of enhanced reliability security status or something with the government, does that help with the background investigation? And essentially, we do our own. So the fact that you might have, secret security clearance with the government, something of that nature, we still do our own. So I can't say that would necessarily speed up the process if you make it to that stage.
Okay. So a couple here. How would the auxiliary program work for somebody working a full-time job? So the auxiliary program is a volunteer position. There is certain training. This is where it might affect a little bit. There's a week training if you get hired down in Aurelia and you go do it there. After that, there's a meeting, depending on the unit, once a month or twice a month. And then you can sign up for different community events that are taking place. If you have to work that day, you don't have to. You can sign up for ride-alongs with officers, and you can schedule those in amongst your schedule and your availability. You just have to consider that there's a minimum of 10 hours a month, either community service or ride-alongs or both. And that's just the minimum. If you can do more from there. So it's basically working around your schedule, except for the meetings. You find out what unit that you want to apply to when the meetings are. They're usually in the evenings, often the Tuesday, Wednesday type thing during the week. So that's for the auxiliary program on there. Somebody's asking, I have 2 collisions on their driving license. Should they apply or would it affect your application? So can it affect your application? Yes, depending what the circumstances are, depending how many collisions you have, depending how recent they are, whether you're at fault or not fault. Same thing goes with convictions from there. So not just your collisions, but your actual tickets or any charges that you've had, any tickets that you've paid. So can you still apply? Absolutely. We're not looking for people with strict, clear driving records with nothing on it. There are no perfect candidates out there. Everybody's got a little bit something. Not everybody's got a 10 on 10 in all their areas of assessment. We try to look for the most competitive candidates. Okay. So if that means that you got a ticket at some point or a couple of tickets, what we're looking for is that driving history. Okay. How much mileage do you drive? What kind of road conditions or weather conditions you drive in? And then in relation to that and your mileage, then how many collisions have you had? How many convictions have you had? And then we'll kind of assess that in the broad sense and look at it overall. Okay, so it's not just your driving record only that we look at. We want to know what kind of experience, how much time you spend behind the wheel to assess your driving ability, and if it's going to be something that we can take on. Is it going to be a liability to the organization or not? That's something for us to assess. But we look at the whole thing, not just your driving record.
There have been a few questions around, like specific questions around vision, and then someone else has asked what are the requirements for vision, hearing, and medical in our process. So if you make it past the interview stage and you enter into the background stage, then part of that is the medical component, which does include vision and hearing. If you go to our website, opp.ca/careers, there is a medical self-assessment there, which does speak in broad terms about our hearing standards, our vision standards, and a little bit about medical. We're just not in a position, we don't have the expertise to answer very specific questions about people's medical situations. I do, though, know with vision, I usually get this messed up, Rael. What are the vision requirements, corrected and uncorrected?
So 2020 corrected, 2040 uncorrected,
Right.
and I forget, it's like I forget the name of the test, but there is a color blindness test. I'm not going to get the name right, so I'm not going to try to say it wrong, but there is a color blindness test as well. Is a 2020 corrected, 2040 uncorrected.
And then as far as anything more specific to that, we just don't have the expertise. But some of that, if you look at the medical questionnaire on our website, it might address some of your more specific questions.
Okay. And this thing jumps all over. Let me find that question I had again. Somebody said they submitted their cadet application and they had to make some corrections and they sent it in and they're not sure if they should reapply. You don't have to resubmit your whole application again. If you submit it and answer the email with the information that they were looking for, that is enough for now. We're still in the process of receiving the cadet applications. We're still in the process of screening cadet applications. So if you don't hear in the next little bit, like we said earlier, it doesn't close till the 11th on Friday. So don't panic at this point if you haven't heard yet. We're still processing that before we haven't started any interviews yet. So it's coming. You just please be patient and just answer emails that are sent to you accordingly, but you don't have to resubmit your application by any means. Okay. So somebody's asking, saying they're busy with their family life and work and stuff, and asking about volunteering. Okay. Try to have something. Okay. I always tell candidates that kind of come to me with similar issues is that the competitive candidates that get hired, okay, they're as competitive as they can be in those different areas of assessment. Okay. Having something rather than nothing at all in community service will help. We would rather, yes, see a more consistent, regular commitment to your community, but we do understand that you have family commitments, you have work commitments, and other things that pull you in different directions. However, when filling out your application, having an area where there's a big gap of nothing, okay, doesn't look very good. So at least try to make an effort. Okay. The candidates that we do hire, find a way somehow to squeeze in something. Okay. Might not be as much as somebody else, depending what responsibilities they have in life. And we understand that and look at that. However, make sure that you try to find something. Okay. Even if it's just a one-off event here and there, rather than a continuous thing, we'd rather see that you have some touch with your community and build that area there somehow.
I think we have time for just one or two more questions. So I'll grab one here. Someone was asking, with OPC tuition now being free, are there any other expenses that would be incurred. And so one of the nice things about the OPP is that when we hire you, the very first day that you show up for training at the OPP Academy, and then later on when you go to OPC, you are on salary. So you are receiving a recruit officer's salary. And as far as expenses, not a lot that I can think of, other than, of course, your own gas for travel. If you need to, buy things like running shoes or that kind of thing. But and then there will be some costs for books like the Criminal Code, Highway Traffic Act, that sort of thing. But there shouldn't be too many expenses that I can think of. Rael, can you think of anything?
No, no, there's not too many. Now that the expense of the OPC tuition has been removed, that's the huge one. But no, during they house you, they feed you.
Yeah.
There's always a few things. You're out of town. There might be things here and there, but smaller things. There's the big things are looked after for you. Yeah, I think we touched. We can't get to everybody today. Trying to think if there was a quick one I can say, but anyways, how about we leave it at that?
Sure.
So those interested in the cadet program, it closes this Friday on August 11th. So please get your application in by then. And good luck to everybody. There are more of these sessions following. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website at opp.ca/careers. Within our website, there are frequently asked questions. And after reviewing all that, please look at our events where you might find some information sessions. Some are in person, some are still virtual. There's a mix of different things from there. Hopefully we'll see you around, and good luck with your applications. And thank you.
Thanks a lot, everyone. Good luck.